Chosen one, are you tired of waiting for a miracle that never comes? Have you been praying the same prayer for years, wondering if God has forgotten your name? Do you lie awake at 3 a.m., feeling like you're running out of time? You didn't find this message. This message found you. I don't know if you're sitting in a quiet kitchen with your morning coffee, or lying awake in a dark room with nothing but your thoughts. But listen to me carefully. You are not here by accident. The heavens themselves paused just to whisper your name. What I'm about to tell you has been hidden until this very moment. The 1st of July, 2025 is not just another date on your calendar. It's a doorway. A spiritual threshold that God has appointed specifically for His chosen ones. And beloved, if you're hearing these words right now, you are one of them. But here's what breaks my heart, and listen closely if you miss this moment. If you scroll past this message, something sacred within you may never awaken again. The door that's opening now, it won't stay open forever. I can feel it in my spirit as I speak these words. There's someone listening right now whose soul is stirring. You're feeling it, aren't you? That flutter in your chest, that sudden warmth in your spirit. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Before we go any deeper, I want to say this from my heart. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread this light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message is already resonating with your soul, go ahead and hit that like button now. But right now, if you feel even the smallest flicker in your chest, if something deep inside you is saying, this is for me, I need you to do something. Comment, I'm ready below. That's not just a comment, that's your covenant. That's your declaration to heaven that you're prepared to receive what God has been holding back until this very moment. The 1st of July, 2025. Remember that date, because what happens next will change everything. The waiting is almost over, chosen one. It's time to tell you everything. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to coast through life while you've carried burdens that would break others? Why every victory in your life came with a price tag that others never had to pay? Why you felt different, set apart, even lonely in rooms full of people who should understand you? Listen to me carefully, beloved. You were chosen before you could even speak your name. I'm talking to those of you who've spent 70, 80, even 90 years on this earth wondering if you somehow missed your calling. You've watched younger generations chase dreams while you convinced yourself your season had passed. You've sat in doctors' offices, funeral homes, and quiet Sunday afternoons thinking, God, did I waste the time you gave me? But what if I told you that everything you've endured, every heartbreak, every financial struggle, every night you cried into your pillow wondering if anyone truly saw you? What if all of that was preparation, not punishment? Before your mother held you in her arms, before she even knew she was carrying you, God had already written your name in His book. Jeremiah 1-5 says it plainly, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Not suggested, not hoped for, set apart, marked, chosen. You feel that stirring in your chest right now, don't you? That's not your imagination. That's recognition. Your spirit recognizing what your mind has forgotten. For decades, you've been surviving, getting by, making do, telling yourself that dreaming was for younger people, that God's big plans were for someone else, someone more qualified, someone who hadn't made as many mistakes. But chosen ones were never made to just survive. You were made to transform. You were made to carry light into dark places. You were made to speak life into dead situations. Think about Moses, 80 years old when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 80 years old, in a nursing home by today's standards. But God said, now you're ready. Now you understand suffering. Now you know what it means to depend on me completely. Think about Sarah, 90 years old when she conceived Isaac. 90. Everyone around her had given up hope. Even she had laughed at God's promise. But God's timing isn't our timing. His delays are not his denials. You've spent decades thinking you were too old, too tired, too broken. But what if God was just waiting for the world to be desperate enough to receive what only you can give? What if your wrinkles are his credentials? What if your scars are his signature? What if your experience is exactly what this generation needs to hear? Right now, there's a young person somewhere in America drowning in despair, convinced they'll never amount to anything. They need to hear your story. They need to know that someone who's walked through hell and came out praising God is still standing. They don't need perfection. They need proof that God keeps his promises, even when the road gets long. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your entire life has been a master class in faith. Every bill you couldn't pay that somehow got paid. Every marriage that should have ended but didn't. Every diagnosis that should have destroyed you, but only made you stronger. Every time you wanted to quit but got up the next morning anyway. That wasn't luck, that was training. God has been preparing you for the 1st of July, 2025. Not because the world ends, but because your silence does. Not because time runs out, but because your season of hiding behind "I'm too old" finally comes to an end. You didn't miss your moment. Your moment was delayed until the world was ready for you. Until this generation became desperate enough for wisdom that only comes from walking with God through decades of fire. Until America became broken enough to listen to voices that have been tested, tried, and proven faithful. Every person you've buried taught you something about eternity. Every dream that died taught you something about resurrection. Every time you felt forgotten taught you something about God's timing. You thought you were just getting older. God was making you qualified. The calling that's stirring in your heart right now, it's not new, it's ancient. It was placed there before your first breath, and it's been waiting, dormant but not dead, for this exact moment when everything you've learned converges with everything the world needs to hear. This isn't about age. Sarah was 90. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything. Moses was 80. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized Jesus in the temple. God doesn't retire his chosen ones. He refines them. If your heart is thundering right now, if something deep inside you is awakening for the first time in years, pause this video. Write down today's date. That's the day you remembered who you are. That's the day you stopped believing the lie that your best years are behind you. Because what I'm about to tell you next will shatter every excuse you've ever made about being too late, too old, or too ordinary to be used by God in extraordinary ways. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is, are you finally ready to stop hiding? Chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Before the enemy ever attacked your health, before he touched your family, before he came after your finances, he saw your potential. He saw what God had placed inside you, and it terrified him. You think those battles you've been fighting for the last 40, 50, 60 years were random. You think that heart attack at 62 was just bad luck. You think losing your spouse, watching your children struggle, seeing your savings disappear, you think that was all coincidence. You were under attack not because you were weak, but because hell saw what heaven placed in you. Look at me. I need you to understand this. The devil doesn't waste his ammunition on empty targets. He doesn't send his fiercest demons after people who pose no threat to his kingdom. But you've been in his crosshairs since the day you were born, because he knew something about your destiny that you're just now beginning to remember. Think about Job. The Bible says in Job 1-8, the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" God himself pointed Job out to the enemy. Why? Because Job carried something precious, righteousness that could withstand any storm. And what happened? Satan unleashed everything he had. Boils, bankruptcy, betrayal, death of his children. But here's what the enemy didn't count on every attack, only refined Job's faith like gold in the fire. You've been living Job's story, haven't you? People look at you and they think you're so strong. They think you've got it all together. But they never saw the nights you almost gave up. They never saw you on your knees at 3 a.m., wondering if God had forgotten your address. They never saw you staring at that bottle of pills, thinking maybe, just maybe, it would be easier to just go home to Jesus. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You endured. And do you know why? Because there's something inside you that the enemy has been trying to kill for decades, and he's running out of time. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times have you felt forgotten? How many times have you looked in the mirror and wondered if your best years are behind you? How many times have you watched the world change around you and felt like you don't matter anymore? That's not age talking. That's warfare. The enemy has been whispering lies in your ear for years. You're too old. You're irrelevant. Your time has passed. Nobody listens to old people anymore. Your legacy doesn't matter. But I'm here to tell you that every single one of those thoughts is a lie straight from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. Abraham was 99 when God gave him Isaac. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification. Every wrinkle on your face is a battle scar. Every gray hair is a trophy. Every limitation you think you have is actually a testimony to the miraculous power of God that's kept you standing when lesser people would have fallen. The refiner's fire, that's what you've been in. Malachi 3:3 says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." What looks like burning is actually purifying. What feels like destruction is actually preparation. You think God was punishing you when your husband died? He was preparing you to be a widow who could comfort other widows with the comfort you received from Christ. You think God was abandoning you when your health failed? He was teaching you to depend on His strength when yours wasn't enough. Every single thing that tried to destroy you was actually building something inside you that the world desperately needs. Your pain wasn't pointless, it was purposeful. Your suffering wasn't senseless, it was strategic. Listen to me carefully. Your greatest pain was the womb for your greatest power. That depression that nearly killed you in your 40s. It gave you the ability to recognize when someone else is drowning and throw them a lifeline. That financial ruin that left you eating beans and rice for months. It taught you that God is your provider when everything else fails. That betrayal that broke your heart into a million pieces. It showed you how to love unconditionally because you know what it feels like to be abandoned. The enemy thought he was breaking you, but God was making you. The enemy thought he was ending your story, but God was just getting started. You know what terrifies hell about you right now? It's not that you're young and strong and full of energy. It's that you've been tested by fire and you're still standing. It's that you've walked through the valley of the shadow of death and you fear no evil. It's that you've learned to trust God in the dark. And that kind of faith is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Comment below. My pain has purpose. And if you've been through the fire and came out standing, let the world know you survived for something. But here's what's happening right now. Chosen one. The 1st of July. 2025 isn't just another date. It's the moment when God is about to activate everything He's been building in you through all those years of suffering. The refining is almost over. The testing is almost complete. The question is, are you ready to discover why you had to go through everything you went through to get to where you are right now? This is not just a message, beloved. This is a threshold. You know what breaks my heart? I meet people in their 70s and 80s who whisper to me, "Pastor, I think I missed my chance. I think God's done with me." And every time I hear those words, something in my spirit wants to shout, "Are you kidding me? You think the God who created the universe is done with you because you've got some gray hair and a few wrinkles?" Listen to me carefully. The 1st of July, 2025 is not a prophecy of doom. It's a divine checkpoint. It's God's appointed time to awaken something in His chosen ones that the world has written off, but heaven never forgot. You want to talk about late bloomers? Let's talk about Moses. 80 years old when God called him to deliver an entire nation. 80. Most people are thinking about retirement villages, and God hands him the biggest assignment in human history. Now Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Exodus 7:7. But Moses isn't alone in this hall of faith. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. 100. Sarah was 90. They were way past social security age when God said, "Now I'm going to fulfill my promise." Genesis 21:5 tells us Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And then there's Anna the prophetess. Luke 2:36-37 says she was 84 years old, spending every single day in the temple, praying and fasting. Everyone probably thought, poor old Anna, still hanging around the temple after all these years. But when baby Jesus walked through those doors, she was the first to recognize the Messiah of the world. Her age wasn't a disqualification, it was her qualification. Do you see the pattern here? Do you see what God is trying to tell you? Just because you're older doesn't mean you're too late. It means God trusted you with endurance. It means He knew you'd still be standing when the young ones gave up. It means your experience, your pain, your wisdom, all of it was preparation for what's coming next. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where the 1st of July, 2025 becomes your story. How many of you are sitting there right now thinking, I wasted so many years, I made so many mistakes, I should have done more with my life? How many of you look in the mirror and see failure instead of a fighter? How many of you have let the world convince you that your best days are behind you? Stop. Just stop. You want to know why you're still here? You want to know why you survived everything that tried to break you, the divorce, the financial struggles, the health scares, the loss of loved ones? You want to know why you're still breathing when others who seemed stronger didn't make it? Because God has been preparing you for the 1st of July, 2025. This isn't about changing the world, dear one. The world doesn't need another young revolutionary with big dreams and no scars. The world needs seasoned warriors who've walked through fire and still trust God. The world needs people who've been broken and put back together by the Master's hands. The 1st of July will not change the world, but it will change you. And when you change, when you finally step into who God has been preparing you to be for 70, 80, 90 years, everything shifts. Your family will notice. Your neighbors will ask questions. People will wonder what happened to you. There's something different about you, they'll say. And you'll know. You'll know that on the 1st of July, 2025, the version of you that the world forgot, but heaven never did, finally woke up. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. The enemy has been whispering lies to you for decades. You're too old. You're too tired. You missed your chance. But I'm here to tell you that every gray hair on your head is a crown of wisdom. Every line on your face is a map of God's faithfulness. Every struggle you've survived is proof that you're still here for a reason. In Psalm 92:14, God promises, they will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. Fresh and green, not dried up, not forgotten, not finished. Fresh and green. But here's the thing, and listen closely. This awakening doesn't happen automatically. It requires a choice. It requires you to stop agreeing with the voice that says you're done and start agreeing with the voice of heaven that says you're just getting started. The 1st of July, 2025 was written in eternity to wake up the version of you that knows how to pray with authority, love without condition, and speak truth without fear. The version of you that's been refined by fire and purified by pain. The version of you that's not trying to impress anyone because you've already impressed the only one who matters. So right now, and I mean right now, I want you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I want you to take 3 minutes. Turn off every distraction. Put down your phone. Look up toward heaven and whisper these words. God, I'm ready to be used again. I'm ready to stop hiding. I'm ready to stop making excuses. Use me for whatever time I have left. That prayer, that simple, honest prayer, will change the next 30 years of your life. Because the 1st of July 2025 isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your greatest chapter. But what exactly is God calling you to do? What is this awakening supposed to look like in your daily life? Dear chosen one, your enemy was never the world around you. It was never the politicians, the media, or even the devil himself. Your greatest enemy has been the story you kept telling yourself in the quiet moments when no one else was listening. You know the story. You've whispered it 1,000 times. I'm too old now. My best years are behind me. I'm too tired to start over. Too late to make a difference. Too broken to be used by God. But what if I told you that every single word of that story is a lie straight from the pit of hell? Listen to me carefully. The narrative that's been playing in your head isn't your voice. It's the voice of defeat, designed to keep you small, quiet, and hidden. It's the same voice that told Moses he was too old at 80, the same voice that whispered to Abraham that he was too ancient to father nations. The same voice that convinced Sarah she was too worn out to birth a miracle. But God had other plans, didn't he? You see, beloved, there's something the enemy knows about you that you've forgotten about yourself. He knows that your supposed weakness is actually your greatest weapon. Your age isn't a limitation, it's your authority. Your scars aren't disqualifications, they're your credentials. Your weariness isn't evidence that you're finished. It's proof that you've been fighting battles worth winning. The world looks at a 65-year-old grandmother and sees retirement. God looks at the same woman and sees a kingdom general who's finally learned how to fight without fear. The world sees weathered hands and calls them old. Heaven sees those same hands and calls them consecrated by decades of prayer, service, and sacrifice. You think you're in the sunset years of your life. Let me shock you with truth. You're not in the sunset at all. You're standing in the sunrise of your highest assignment. The golden years aren't about golf courses and cruise ships. They're about golden opportunities to impact eternity. Romans 8:28 doesn't have an expiration date. And we know that all things work together for good, to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All things. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every year you thought was wasted, every dream that seemed to die, God has been weaving it all together for this moment, for this assignment, for this season of your life. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. While you've been believing lies about your limitations, there are people dying, literally dying, without hearing the truth that only you can speak. There are grandchildren growing up without the wisdom that lives in your spirit. There are communities crumbling that need the strength you've built through decades of overcoming. You think you're too tired? Moses was tired when he split the Red Sea. You think you're too old? Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." You think it's too late? Abraham was 99 when God renewed his covenant. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at the impossible and then birthed it. I need you to understand something that's going to shatter every excuse you've been carrying. You are not a retiree marking time until heaven. You are a kingdom general disguised as a grandmother. You are a prophet in plain clothes walking through grocery stores and doctors' offices. You are Moses, in modern America, called to lead people out of bondage they don't even know they're in. The wisdom in your heart didn't come from books, it came from battles. The peace in your spirit wasn't downloaded from a sermon, it was forged in the furnace of real life. The faith you carry wasn't inherited, it was earned through nights when you had to choose between trusting God or losing your mind. And now, after all these years of preparation, you want to tell me you're done? You want to convince me that God spent 7 decades training you just so you could spend your final years playing it safe? The devil has been selling you a retirement plan, But God has been preparing you for a revival plan. While the enemy whispers, slow down, the Spirit is saying, speed up. While the world says, step back, heaven is shouting, step forward. Every morning you wake up is proof that your assignment isn't complete. Every breath in your lungs is evidence that God still has work for you to do. Every beat of your heart is a drumbeat calling you to march into your destiny, not retreat from it. You're not behind schedule, beloved. You're not late to the party. You're arriving exactly when heaven needs you most. This generation needs what you carry. They need your stability in chaos, your wisdom in confusion, your faith in doubt. They need to see that it's possible to go through hell and come out praising God. Right now, I need you to do something that's going to terrify every demonic force that's been whispering lies in your ear. I need you to say it out loud, right where you are. I am not done. Did your voice shake? Say it again. I am not done. Hell trembles when you believe it. Heaven rejoices when you declare it, and the earth shifts when you walk in it. But the question that will determine everything that happens next in your life is this: will you finally stop listening to the voice of limitation and start obeying the voice of your calling? They didn't just attack your dreams, they went after your voice. Listen to me carefully, beloved. What happened to you wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It was a targeted assault on the very thing that makes you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, your ability to speak truth, to call forth heaven, to declare God's promises over impossible situations. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That moment when everything changed. When the people you trusted most looked you in the eye and said your dreams were foolish. When the church that was supposed to nurture your gifts instead told you to sit down and be quiet. When family members mocked the very calling that burned in your bones. They didn't just disagree with you. They systematically dismantled your confidence, piece by piece, word by word, until you began to question everything you thought you heard from God. And here's the most devastating part: you stopped praying. Not because you stopped believing, but because hope started to hurt more than silence. You remember that woman in Mark chapter 5, don't you? 12 years of bleeding. 12 years of being told she was unclean, untouchable, unwanted. The religious leaders silenced her voice. Society cast her out. But something deep inside her refused to die. She crawled through that crowd. Crawled. On her hands and knees, fighting through legs and feet and the very people who had spent 12 years telling her she didn't belong. She didn't speak. She couldn't speak. All she could do was reach. But beloved, her silence wasn't defeat. It was strategy. It was preparation. It was the final push before her breakthrough. Even Elijah, the mighty prophet who called down fire from heaven, found himself under that broom tree in 1 Kings 19, whispering to God, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Just let me die here." The man who had just defeated 450 prophets of Baal was ready to quit because one woman threatened him. One voice of opposition made him forget every miracle he'd ever witnessed. But God didn't rebuke him for his honesty. God fed him. God strengthened him. God gave him a new assignment. Some of you stopped singing in church because they told you your voice wasn't good enough. Stopped sharing your prophetic dreams because they called you crazy. Stopped believing God could use someone like you because they convinced you that your past disqualified your future. You stopped laughing. Stopped dreaming. Stopped believing that God still had something beautiful planned for your life. Not because you lost your faith, but because the battle stole your voice. They told you that at 65, at 70, at 75, your season was over. They convinced you that your best days were behind you. They made you believe that God only uses the young, the educated, the connected, the perfect. But listen to what I'm about to tell you, and let it sink deep into your spirit. The silence wasn't the end of your calling. It was the evidence of it. Why do you think the enemy worked so hard to shut you up? Why do you think he orchestrated such a vicious campaign against your voice? Because he knows something you've forgotten. He knows that when you finally remember who you are, when you finally open your mouth and speak what God has given you to say, nations will shift, families will be healed, strongholds will crumble. Your voice carries authority from another realm. Your words, when aligned with heaven, become weapons of mass destruction against everything that opposes God's kingdom. That's why hell worked overtime to silence you. But here's what the enemy didn't count on. Silence can be a sanctuary. Wilderness can be a classroom, and sometimes God allows your voice to be taken so he can give you a better one. Moses stammered. Jeremiah claimed he was too young. Isaiah said he had unclean lips, but God didn't need their eloquence. He needed their availability. You think your voice is broken, but God calls it seasoned. You think your words don't matter, but heaven is leaning in to hear what you'll say next. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at God's promise. 90, and yet that laughter became the foundation of a nation. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything he knew. 75, in a time when life expectancy was half what it is today. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain, not give me a rocking chair. Not, give me a quiet retirement. Give me this mountain, give me the giants, give me the impossible." Your age isn't a limitation. It's leverage. Your scars aren't disqualification. They're your credentials. Your silence wasn't defeat. It was preparation. And now, the 1st of July, 2025 is approaching like a freight train, and God is saying, it's time. Time to stop whispering when you were born to roar. Time to stop apologizing for dreams that came straight from heaven. Time to stop letting other people's limitations become your own. If this is landing in your spirit like lightning, if something deep inside you is stirring for the first time in years, I need you to do something right now. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just respond. Whisper back to me. Say it out loud, even if your voice shakes. I still have something to say. Because, beloved, your story isn't over. Your voice isn't broken. It's been refined in the fire. And now it's time for the world to hear what God has been whispering to you in the silence. But the question that will determine everything is this: will you find the courage to use it? There's a room inside your spirit, a room you haven't entered in years. I can see you right now, chosen one. You're listening to these words, and something deep inside is stirring. Something you buried, something you locked away because life told you it wasn't practical, because someone told you to grow up, because the world convinced you that dreams are for the young and foolish. But that room is still there. You used to write, didn't you? Late at night when the house was quiet and your soul could finally breathe. You used to speak words that carried weight, that made people lean in and listen. You used to really believe that you were made for something extraordinary, something that would outlast your body, something that would echo into eternity. What happened to that person? I'll tell you what happened. Life happened. Disappointment knocked on your door so many times you stopped answering. People you trusted broke promises. Dreams you nurtured died slow, painful deaths. And one day, you walked into that sacred room of your spirit, looked around at all the dust-covered journals, all the locked drawers in your soul, and you whispered, "Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm just ordinary." And you closed the door. But here's what breaks my heart, and here's what you need to understand. God never left that room. While you've been living outside of yourself, surviving instead of thriving, settling for less instead of stepping into more, He's been in there, waiting for you to remember who you were before the world told you who you should be. The prophet Elisha knew a widow who thought she had nothing left. Her husband was dead. Her debts were crushing her. Her sons were about to be sold into slavery. She came to the man of God and said, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Sound familiar? Have you been there? Feeling like everything you've worked for is slipping away, like your legacy is being stolen, like you're too old, too tired, too broken to matter anymore. But Elisha asked her a question that changed everything. "What do you have in your house?" She said, Your servant has nothing there at all, except a small jar of olive oil. Nothing, except those 2 words, chosen one, are about to change your life. Because what you think is nothing, God sees as everything. That small jar, that tiny remnant of anointing you think dried up years ago, that's all God needs. That's all He's ever needed. You see, you've been looking at your life like that widow. You've been counting your losses instead of your oil. You've been measuring your worth by what's gone instead of what remains. But God doesn't see the empty shelves. He sees the jar that's still sealed, the anointing that's still fresh, the calling that never expired. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are gifts inside you that have been fermenting like fine wine, getting richer, getting stronger, getting ready for their appointed time. The 1st of July, 2025 isn't just a date, it's harvest time for the oil you thought was gone. But you have to go back into that room. You have to dust off those journals and remember what you wrote when your heart was on fire. You have to unlock those drawers and pull out the dreams you thought were dead. You have to look at that small jar of oil, that flicker of faith, that whisper of hope, that tiny spark of what if, and realize it never stopped burning. The widow poured her oil, and it multiplied until every vessel in the house was full. Every empty jar became a container of abundance. Every space that held nothing became a place of overflow. What if I told you that every disappointment you faced was just an empty vessel waiting to be filled? What if every broken dream was just God making room for something bigger? What if every closed door was just heaven preparing you for the day when you'd stop knocking and start walking through walls? You think you're too old? Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything and follow a promise he couldn't see. Moses was 80 when he stood before Pharaoh and demanded freedom for an entire nation. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain, not give me rest, not give me retirement, but give me the biggest battle left to fight." Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Every wrinkle on your face is a line of wisdom. Every scar on your heart is proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. Every gray hair is a crown of honor, evidence that you've walked through fires that would have consumed others. But you have to enter the room. Close your eyes right now. I'm serious. Put your hand on your chest and feel your heart beating. That rhythm that's not just blood pumping. That's the sound of a calling that never died. That's the echo of a purpose that's been waiting, patient as eternity, for you to remember. Say this out loud. God, I'm ready to remember the room. Say it again. Louder this time, because that one line, those 7 words, may restore what 40 years of silence tried to steal. That prayer may unlock what a lifetime of disappointment tried to bury. That declaration may awaken what the enemy thought he had killed forever. The oil is still there, chosen one. The anointing is still fresh. The calling is still active. The room is still waiting. And on the 1st of July, 2025, that door doesn't just open, it disappears forever. Because you won't need it anymore. You'll be living in the fullness of who you've always been. But the question remains, will you go back to the room? Or will you spend your remaining years wondering what could have been? You've spent a lifetime being called things you were never meant to carry. Lazy, worthless, too old, too late, failure, disappointment, the black sheep, the one who never quite measured up. Those names have been carved into your soul like scars, haven't they? Every cruel word, every dismissive comment, every time someone looked at you and decided you weren't enough. But listen to me, beloved. Those names were never yours. You see, there's something the world doesn't understand about how heaven operates. When God looks at you, He doesn't see the labels others have stuck on you. He doesn't read the report cards from your past or the judgments from people who never even knew your heart. When the Almighty looks at you, He sees a name written in His own handwriting before the foundation of the world. Isaiah 43:1 declares it with absolute authority. I have called you by name. You are mine. Not I might call you. Not I will call you, if you clean up your act. He says, I have called you by name. Past tense. Already done. Settled in heaven before you took your first breath. Do you understand what that means? While your mother was choosing between nursery colors, God was already calling you by a name that would echo through eternity. While teachers were writing grades on your papers, heaven was writing something far more permanent in the book of life. You want to know how serious God is about names? He changes them. Abram became Abraham, from exalted father to father of multitudes. Jacob, the deceiver, became Israel, one who wrestles with God and prevails. Saul, the murderer of Christians, became Paul, the apostle to the nations. God doesn't just give you a new name. He reveals who you've always been. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me awake at night praying for people just like you. You've been walking around wearing someone else's name tag for so long, you've forgotten the scroll with your real name written in gold. Maybe it was your father who told you that you'd never amount to anything. Maybe it was that teacher in 3rd grade who said you were slow. Maybe it was your ex-spouse who convinced you that you were unlovable. Maybe it was your own children who made you feel like a burden in your golden years. Those voices have been so loud for so long that you can barely hear the whisper from heaven anymore. But it's still there. Even now, as you're listening to these words, can you feel it? That faint stirring in your spirit? That's not nostalgia, that's recognition. Your soul remembering its true name. I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. Every name they called you was a lie, designed to keep you from discovering your true identity. The enemy knew that if you ever found out who you really are, if you ever heard your name the way heaven pronounces it, you would become dangerous to his kingdom. So he used every broken person, every bitter circumstance, every painful season to convince you that you were ordinary, average, forgettable. Because if you believed that lie long enough, you'd never step into the extraordinary calling that has your real name written all over it. But the 1st of July, 2025, is the day the lie dies. You're not forgotten, beloved. You're engraved. Isaiah 49:16 says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands," not written in pencil, not typed on a computer. Engraved. Carved deep. Permanent. Unchangeable. Do you know what that means? Every time Jesus opens his hands to bless, he sees your name. Every time he reaches out to heal, your name is right there. Every time he intercedes for you at the right hand of the Father, he's looking at your name carved into his flesh. The God of the universe has your name tattooed on his hands, and you're worried about what your neighbor thinks of you. Let me tell you something that's going to change everything. That name they called you in high school, it's not in the book. That label your family put on you, heaven doesn't recognize it. That identity crisis you've been carrying for decades, it's time to trade it in for the truth. Right now, I want you to do something radical. I want you to whisper your true name below in the comments. Not what they called you. Not the name on your birth certificate that carries all the baggage. I want you to type the name that makes your spirit leap. The name that heaven has been calling you all along. Maybe it's beloved. Maybe it's chosen. Maybe it's warrior or overcomer or faithful one. Maybe it's a name you've never heard before, but you'll know it when you type it, because your soul will recognize it like a long-lost melody. Because here's what I know about the 1st of July, 2025. It's not just a date. It's the day heaven stops whispering and starts shouting your real name. And when that happens, when you finally hear it clearly, you're going to understand why the enemy fought so hard to keep you from this moment. The question isn't whether God knows your name. The question is, are you finally ready to answer when he calls it? You know what breaks my heart? It's not the failures. It's not the closed doors. It's not even the betrayals that left you questioning everything you believed about yourself. What breaks my heart is that you think you're finished. You think because you're 70 or 80 or 90, because your body moves slower, because the world tells you your time has passed. You think the fire inside you has burned out. But listen to me, chosen one. The reason you still feel that ache in your chest when you wake up at 3 a.m., The reason you still dream about what could have been. The reason your spirit still stirs when you hear a certain song or remember a certain moment is because the fire never died. It never died. You see, the enemy's greatest lie isn't that you're worthless. His greatest lie is that you're done, that your season is over, that God's finished with you. But I'm here to tell you something that's going to shake the foundations of that lie. Moses wasn't called until he was 80 years old. 80. Abraham didn't receive his promise until he was 100. Anna the prophetess served in the temple until she was 84, and it was then that she saw the Messiah with her own eyes. God doesn't work on your timeline. He doesn't follow your retirement plan. He doesn't check your birth certificate before he moves in your life. The fact that you're still here, still breathing, still watching these words, that is the evidence that your flame isn't done burning. You think those 40 years Moses spent in the wilderness were wasted? You think those decades of waiting, of tending sheep, of feeling forgotten were punishment? No, they were preparation. Every rejection taught him humility. Every lonely night in the desert trained his spirit to hear God's voice above the noise. Every year of waiting was God stoking the fire that would eventually split the Red Sea. And you, oh, chosen one, every disappointment you've endured, every dream that seemed to die, every time you thought, this is it, I'm finished, God was stoking your fire too. There's an ember under the ashes of your disappointment. There's a flame beneath the weight of your regrets. There's a roaring fire under the blanket of the world's indifference. You're not burned out. You're being reignited. Right now, as these words hit your spirit, something is happening. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest isn't nostalgia. That's not wishful thinking. That's the Holy Spirit breathing on coals that never went cold. Isaiah 61:3 says, God gives us beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. But notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say he gives us new fire. He gives us oil for the fire that was already there. He fans the flame that survived every storm. You survived that divorce that nearly broke you. The fire lived. You survived burying your spouse, your friends, your dreams. The fire lived. You survived the diagnosis, the financial ruin, the betrayal that left you questioning everything. The fire lived. And if the fire lived through all of that, what makes you think it's going to die now? The world looks at you and sees age. God looks at you and sees experience. The world sees limitations. God sees preparation. The world sees your final chapter. God sees your greatest chapter. But here's what you need to understand, and this is urgent. The 1st of July, 2025 isn't just marking the passage of time. It's marking the moment when God says, now. Now is when I use everything I've put you through. Now is when the fire I've been tending in secret becomes a blaze that lights up the darkness. You think you're too old to make a difference? Tell that to the woman who started her first business at 75 and built an empire. Tell that to the man who ran his first marathon at 80. Tell that to Grandma Moses, who didn't start painting until she was 78 and became one of America's most celebrated artists. But more than that. Tell that to Caleb, who, at 85 years old, said, give me this mountain. Tell that to Joshua, who led Israel's greatest victories in his 70s. Tell that to John, who received the revelation of Jesus Christ when he was over 90 years old on the island of Patmos. The fire that burns in you isn't just personal, it's generational. It's not just for you, it's for your children, your grandchildren, for people you'll never meet who need to see that it's never too late to burn bright. You're not the sunset, you're the sunrise of something the world has never seen before. So here's what I need you to do right now. I don't care if you're sitting in a wheelchair. I don't care if your knees hurt. I don't care if people are watching. Stand up. Wherever you are right now, stand up. And I want you to say these words out loud. The fire lives in me, and it's not done burning. That's not drama, that's deliverance. That's not theater. That's truth. That's not emotion. That's activation. Because on the 1st of July, 2025, God is calling his chosen ones to stop hiding their fire under the bushel of age, under the blanket of society's expectations, under the weight of their own doubts. The world is about to see what happens when the fire that never went out finally gets permission to burn. Are you ready to give it that permission? You've walked through the doorway, you've felt the fire, you've heard the voice calling your name in that sacred room of your heart. The flame is burning brighter now, isn't it? But beloved, this isn't the end of your journey. This is where your real mission begins. If you're still breathing, if your heart is still beating, if you can still hear my voice right now, the mission still stands. And I need you to understand something that might shake you to your core. You don't need another prophecy. You are the prophecy. Think about that for a moment. Every gray hair on your head, every line on your face, every scar from every battle you've fought and survived. They're not signs of your decline. They're marks of your qualification. You've been refined by fire. You've been tested by time. You've been prepared for this exact moment. But here's what breaks my heart. I see so many of you who think your time is over. You've been told to step aside, to make room for the younger generation, to fade quietly into the background. The world has convinced you that wisdom is outdated, that experience is irrelevant, that your voice no longer matters. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Listen to me carefully. Your grandchildren are waiting. They're drowning in a sea of confusion, surrounded by voices that offer everything except truth. They need an anchor. They need someone who remembers what real strength looks like. They need you. Your neighborhood is waiting. There are people living just 3 houses down from you who are dying inside, wearing smiles during the day and crying themselves to sleep at night. They need someone who's been through the valley and made it to the other side. They need your testimony. Your purpose is pacing. It's been walking back and forth in the corridors of eternity, waiting for you to stop making excuses and step into what God has been preparing you for your entire life. Do you remember the story of Lazarus? Jesus stood at that tomb for 4 days. 4 days of stench, 4 days of decay, 4 days of everyone saying it's too late. And then Jesus spoke 2 words that shattered death itself. Come forth. That's your moment right now. You've been in the tomb of silence too long. You've been wrapped in the grave clothes of, I'm too old and nobody listens to me anymore and my time has passed. But I hear the voice of the Lord calling to you right now. Come forth. Come out of the grave of thinking you're finished. Come out of the tomb of believing your best days are behind you. Come out of the burial clothes of retirement from purpose. Jesus is calling your name, and when he calls, the dead must rise. You want to know why the 1st of July 2025 matters? Because it's your resurrection moment. It's the day you stop letting other people define your expiration date. It's the moment you remember that Moses was 80 when he faced Pharaoh. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to promise. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Age didn't disqualify them, it qualified them. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your voice doesn't matter anymore. He's been whispering lies about how the world has moved on without you, how your experiences are outdated, how your wisdom is irrelevant. But that's because he knows something you've forgotten. He knows that one voice, speaking from decades of walking with God, can destroy 1,000 voices speaking from mere opinion. He knows that one life lived in authentic faith can awaken an entire generation. He knows that when you finally remember who you are, hell itself trembles. The world doesn't need another loud voice. It needs one holy voice who remembers who they are. You've seen wars. You've survived recessions. You've buried friends. You've raised children. You've weathered storms that would break weaker souls. You've accumulated more than just years. You've accumulated authority, spiritual authority that comes only through testing. And now God is saying to you what he said to Jeremiah. Do not say, I am too young or I am too old. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you. and will rescue you. Your mission isn't retirement. Your mission is commissioning. You're being knighted in the kingdom of heaven right now. Can you feel it? The weight of divine purpose settling on your shoulders. The fire of the Holy Spirit igniting in your chest. This is your moment to stop apologizing for taking up space and start occupying the territory God has given you. This is your time to stop whispering your wisdom and start declaring it with authority. This is your season to stop asking permission and start walking in the power that's been yours all along. But I need you to make a choice right now, because heaven is watching. Angels are leaning in. The cloud of witnesses who've gone before you are cheering you on, and God himself is waiting for your answer. If you're ready to walk out of the grave of silence, if you're ready to unwrap the burial clothes of doubt, if you're ready to step into the mission that's been waiting for you your entire life, then I need you to do something right now. Comment, I accept the mission, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now, this is your resurrection moment. This is your come forth calling. The tomb is empty. The stone has been rolled away. What are you waiting for? Beloved chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred moment together, I want you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, the 1st of July, 2025 isn't just a date on your calendar, it's your divine appointment with destiny. The doorway is open, the fire is burning, and your mission stands ready. You are not too old, not too late, and certainly not forgotten. Second, that stirring in your spirit right now, that's not your imagination. That's the Holy Spirit confirming what heaven has always known about you. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, refined through every trial, and positioned for this exact moment in history. And third, the voice that's been calling your name throughout this message, that same voice spoke light into darkness, calmed raging seas, and raised the dead. When that voice calls you forward, mountains move, valleys rise, and the impossible becomes inevitable. But here's what I need you to know with absolute certainty. You are not walking this path alone. God hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. Even when the road gets difficult, even when doubt tries to whisper lies about your purpose, remember that the same God who parted the Red Sea is still parting ways for you today. And you have a community here, thousands of believers who understand your journey because they're walking it too. We're praying for each other, supporting each other, and rising together. You're part of something bigger than yourself, something eternal and unshakable. Before I release you into your calling, I want to ask you one final question that will determine everything. When you stand before the throne of God someday, what will you say when he asks, "What did you do with the mission I gave you on the 1st of July, 2025? Will you tell him you were too afraid, too tired, too old? Or will you tell him that you said yes, you stepped forward, and you fulfilled the purpose he placed in your heart before time began? Right now, wherever you are, I want you to bow your head with me. Let me pray over you with the authority of someone who has walked with God for decades and seen his faithfulness in every season. Heavenly Father, I come before your throne right now, lifting up every precious soul who has heard this message. Lord, you know their names, you know their struggles, you know the battles they've fought in silence and the dreams they've carried in secret. I pray that you would place your mighty hand upon them right now. Let them feel your presence like a warm embrace, reminding them that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond understanding, and called beyond their own ability. Father, open every door that man has closed. Heal every wound that time hasn't touched. Restore every dream that disappointment has stolen. Give them strength for the journey ahead, wisdom for the decisions they must make, and courage to speak when you call them to speak. Lord, I pray specifically for their families, their health, their finances, and their peace. Where there has been division, bring unity. Where there has been sickness, bring healing. Where there has been lack, bring provision. Where there has been anxiety, bring your perfect peace that surpasses all understanding. And God, I pray that every person listening right now would step boldly into their mission, knowing that you go before them, you walk beside them, and you have already prepared the way. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now, beloved, before you close this video, I want you to do something. In the comments below, share just one word that describes how you're feeling right now. Don't overthink it, just type the first word that comes to your heart. Let this community surround you with prayer and encouragement. And if this message has touched your soul, if you felt God speaking directly to you through these words, please share this video with someone else who needs to hear it. You might be the vessel God uses to awaken another chosen one who's been waiting for this exact message. If you have questions, concerns, or just need prayer, don't hesitate to reach out in the comments. This community is here for you, ready to lift you up and remind you that you're never alone in this journey. Thank you for spending this sacred time with me. Thank you for opening your heart, for listening with your spirit, and for saying yes to God's call on your life. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your heart. You're ready for what God has prepared. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week, we're releasing messages specifically designed to encourage, equip, and empower God's chosen ones. You belong here. This is your spiritual family. Remember, chosen one, the 1st of July 2025 is coming. Your mission is waiting, and the God who called you is faithful to complete what He has started in you. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of your calling, rest in the certainty of His love, and know that your best days aren't behind you, they're just beginning. The mission still stands, and so do you. God bless you mightily, beloved. Go forth and